Good morning. I'm going to be giving this presentation along with my collaborator and co-author, Suzette Gallardo, talking about a rear view of 2022 cost of production studies for cherries. And then Suzette is going to present an analysis we did of the effect of prices, the prices of 2023, the 2023 event, and kind of give an idea of, depending on market prices, when is a good idea or not a good idea to harvest. Okay. Can I go to the next slide? There you go. So production costs, we have two types of costs that are included in these studies. One set of costs are what we call cash costs. The cash costs are those that you see the actual dollar going out of your wallet or from your bank account. So these also have different categories. We categorize them as the direct or variable costs. These are your operational costs, what you spend on chemicals, what you pay for labor, and things like that. Then we have taxes. That does not depend on the volume of production. Taxes are going to be always there, depending if you produce 1 or 1,000. Insurance is also there. And then there are two types of insurance. The crop insurance, which depends on the volume of the production, but then the other type of insurance that does not depend on the volume of the production, and then miscellaneous costs. So those are the cash costs. And then the non-cash costs includes two different sets or categories. One is the depreciation on your equipment, right? The tractor, the sprayer, and all those equipment that you have in the operation. And then this sometimes misunderstood concept of opportunity cost, that we economists like to include them. Some people don't like to include them, but we include it no matter what, because it gives an idea of if investing in this alternative, it's the best use of my capital, of my money. So we include these opportunity costs, comprise alternative use of assets, alternative use of your labor management, and alternative uses of the borrowed capital. Okay, so those three are the opportunity costs. So having said that, profits are not always positive, right? Yields vary from year to year, prices vary from year to year, and we have to look at this with two types of lens. One is the short-time economic costs, and looking at here at the cash cost, right? So if you want to do your planning year to year, look at the cash cost. But if you want to see the long-term horizon, like you want to go longer in the time and to see how do I see myself in 15 years, in 20 years, maybe including the opportunity cost and the depreciation is a better way to do it, okay? But it all depends on you. You are the ones who are gonna make the decision. We're just giving you the information. Having problems passing. Okay, there you go. So at WSU have produced different sweet cherry enterprise budget studies. Since I was hired in 2008, we have been working in a sweet cherry production study in 2009, then 2015, 2021, with an update of 2022. The 2022 has 4 varieties. We try to get a different basket of varieties, having early harvest, mid-harvest, and late harvest, the Chelan, Skin and Coral Champagne, and the Sweetheart. How do you find these studies? So you type WSU Crop Enterprise Budget in Google, and you will find this Crop Enterprise Budget, the School of Economic Sciences. You do click on that, and then you will find a page that looks like that. Now, the page looks different from before. We have added some information because we have been hearing from folks saying, hey, we don't understand what you mean by this. How do we use that? This number really confuses me. I really don't like your study. So we try to put more explanation on how to use these studies, what is the structure of these studies, and we even have a video. So a how-to video in case, because we have these studies in PDF and Excel, so the Excel you can input your own numbers and perhaps get some closer to your operation numbers. So we have a video, and we try to get more information so this could be more useful and more friendly to you. Oh, this is really difficult. Okay. Then when you click on, you scroll down a little bit, it is not in the first page, you're going to see finally Washington Enterprise badges for crop commodities, but then you see this and then you're going to see alfalfa and you're, no, I don't want alfalfa, I want cherries. So there is a search box there and you type the word cherries and then cherries will show up. All the studies done for cherries, both in PDF and Excel. So we have PDF and Excel, and the Excel, please note that we have two different colors. There's a color code. The ones that are in orange are the ones that you can change. You can put your own numbers. The ones that are in black are coming with a formula. So those cannot be changed, okay? Don't get frustrated if you cannot change the black ones. The orange one you can change. And the how-to video explains you step by step how to make these changes. Okay, there you go. Now, WSU budgets, we do not collect data massively. We don't have the funds for doing that. We can do it, we have the money, but we don't have. We have, funding scarcity. So we do the best we can with the funding we have. So we cannot do massive data collection. We cannot collect information from thousands of growers. We cannot do a stratification by region, by size of operations. Unfortunately, we don't have the resources to do that. We can if we have, by the way. But what we do is gather a group of, say, 10 really experienced growers and that are willing to help us, willing to sit with us for 2 hours, telling this. But since everybody is a different reality and the cost will vary according to these different realities, we base our studies on assumptions that we hope are the closest to reality, real world, really close to reality assumptions. So we assume, for example, we have an enterprise with a 300-acre size. We have sizes for the block. We have different densities based on the rootstock. We assume that Chelan, Skin, and Coral are going to be on G12. Sweetheart are going to be still on Massar, so that will define the density, the spacing. We have about 600 trees per acre for the Chelan, Esquinas, and Coral, but for the Sweetheart, we have 272. We have different yields per acre and different prices, right, and different packouts. So based on these assumptions, based on this picture, is that we are able to give this cost of production studies. Now, this, again, the assumptions are different yields. We have, different yields in pounds per acre for different varieties, and then we have different prices. These prices we try to do a mix of historical prices from the last year, try to talk with growers. What do you believe will be the prices? What do you think? Because these prices vary, right? So it is, and we are welcoming feedback as much as we can. So this is what we did. And these are the capital requirements, about $47,000 per acre for the Chelan, for the Skin, and for the Coral, and $37,000 for the Sweetheart. And this is mainly because of the density, right? Remember, we have 272 for Sweethearts and 605 for the other ones. So that dictates this difference, and also the fact that the Sweetheart will not need trellis because it's on Massard, and the other ones would need a trellis support system. But then the other costs are about the same. Then, I passed, okay. Then we have this is kind of the summary of the story. You will see these bars. What is these blue bars? These blue bars are the variable cost, this day-to-day operational cost, which is, comprise most of the cost that you guys will incur. Then we have the taxes, the depreciation, and the opportunity cost also represents a considerable portion of this total cost. So, and then these different costs are influenced by the yield, and then the returns are influenced by the yield and also by the market price, right, or by the price that we consider in the study. But if we want to take out the effect of the yield, we have also these dollars per pound. So you can see per pound costs about $2 to produce Chelan and the Coral, 1.8 1.8 Esquina, and the Sweetheart, right? And then the prices are there. So if we are way above this cost, then it is good news for us. Now, variable costs. Let's give a deeper look at those variable costs, that blue bar that we saw in the previous slide. How these variable costs are comprised? Well, we have that almost half of these variable costs are actually packing house. Do you see that green bar? That is packing house charges. And the other ones are all the variable costs, right? So we are seeing labor, we are seeing chemicals, but look at the big chunk packing house represents of all the variable costs. Packing house charges are going to happen, right? You cannot avoid them, so we include them in this study. And this is not new. According to the USDA, the United States Department of Ag, Economic Research Service, they do this study, and they found that for every dollar consumers spend in the grocery store, only 15 cents goes to the farm. Only 15 cents goes to the farm. So you can see here, and I hope this works. So packing house will be about here. So it's another here. And then all this goes to whatever comes after the packing house, the wholesaler, the retailer, and stuff like that. But packing house will be here. So that is reflected actually in our study. That is no different. It aligns. This share of the farm prices varies according to years. The USDA has shown how it varies. Like in 1992, it was 17 cents per dollar. In 2022, it was 15 cents per dollar. Okay, so this varies according to year, and this is information from the USDA. So the story is aligned, right? Packing house is a big, important cost center. Now, I don't want to see packing house charges. Don't show me packing house charges. Just show me the cost in the field. Okay, cost in the field only. How are these distributed? Well, labor cost is the main one, right? In the past, we were saying 45% all the variable costs in the field are labor. Then it went up to 50. Now it's about 60. 60%, about 60% of all the costs in the field are labor. And how this labor is divided? Well, the big chunk is harvest. The gray part is harvest. So 80% of all the labor costs is for harvest. And that other 20% are for other activities in the orchard. Next to labor, we have what we spend in the chemicals and fertilizers. Chemicals understood just the material, just the chemical price, not the labor to apply the chemical, because the labor to apply the chemical is included in labor, okay? And then we have other stuff there. But you know, labor, major cost center after the packing house charges. It's stuff done. Now, labor. Let's look deeper into labor. How is labor doing? Well, 80% of those labor costs are harvest. Then the second one is pruning and training. Pruning and training is our second biggest labor portion. And then for Sweetheart is green fruit thinning. And then we have other cost centers like application of insecticides, and then a smaller application of other chemicals like herbicides, growth regulator, irrigation, frost protection, and stuff like that. But labor is the biggest one, followed by the pruning and training, and for Sweetheart, green fruit thinning. I went too far. Okay. There you go. I'm sorry. There you go, chemicals. Let's look deeper into chemical. This is just the material, not the labor, okay, just the chemical. And the biggest chunk here, well, it's distributed among the insecticide and the fungicide, right? Those applications for cherry fruit fly, for spot wind Drosophila, for leafhoppers, and the fungicide for the mildews are being reflected there. We have some herbicides, also important. And then we have, in less extent, the growth regulators and other chemicals applied. But, you know, those insecticides. And speaking of insecticide and leafhoppers, I wanted to show you, and this is a parenthesis in this presentation, we are doing this exploratory study on what would you think about the idea of coordinating sprays for leafhoppers to mitigate western eggs. So what do you think about that? Do you think it will be a good idea? And I borrowed this idea from a colleague in Florida. You know, in Florida, they have citrus greening, a really devastating disease that has decimated 90% of the acreage in Florida. And they established area-wide pest management that was giving good solutions. But then all of a sudden, growers decided, no, we don't want to coordinate. And then there were losses. So we would like to see, how do you guys think about this idea? What will it take for you guys to decide to coordinate or not? Is it a good idea or not? If you are interested in providing thoughts about this, if you can please click on that QR code, I would really appreciate it. See how many phones go up. Thank you so much for all those who are putting their phones. If you think it's just an exploratory study, entomologists say that actually coordination will give better results. You know that pests are mobile, even though if you really take care of your block, of your property, if your neighbor is not doing his homework, maybe you will get reinfected. So maybe coordination is a good idea. So just exploratory study. Now, going back to the prices, we did also a break-even prices at different yield levels. This is break-even prices reflecting your cost, so this is the minimum possible price to receive to cover all your costs, and this includes the opportunity cost. So the minimum possible prices to cover all your costs, and obviously are depending upon the yields, right? So lower yields, you need actually higher prices. Higher yields, you're okay with not too higher prices, right? So it depends on the yield amount. So takeaway from this study, I guess we have a consensus that 2022 was a profitable year, 2023 was not the same. Labor represents about 60% of all the costs, variable costs in the field, and of all those costs, about 80% is for harvest. Now, we're going to talk about what happened in 2023. And we did some studies, some different sensitivity analysis, we call it, because we base what will happen in this scenario, what will happen under this scenario. So we check different scenarios and see what will happen with the intent of getting what is that price that you will be okay harvesting or not, right? What is that minimum price that you can tell to decide to harvest or not? So for you guys know better than me what happened in 2023. California was late. Prices went down in California and went even lower in Washington. This is information from the USDA Agricultural Market Service on how prices varied in those weeks on 2023. This study goal was to determine, is it a good decision to harvest? At what point is it still profitable or not profitable to harvest? What are the harvest costs that we included? Well, harvest costs will be impacted by the volume of production and fruit size. What are the costs? Is the cost of picking, support, which is the checkers, hauling, and field sorting. We were told that if your culls exceed 20%, you will sometimes, in order to save some of that and still get something out of that, you can get some sorting, and that will also be included in the cost of harvest. So we have this harvest decision. And then what are the factors? Mainly in Washington, the decision to harvest is mainly driven by market prices, right? It is not the crop damage, because even if there is damage in the field, if the prices are high, are good enough that will cover your harvest and your packing house charges, there maybe it's okay to harvest, right? But if the prices are not there, then it is not a good idea to harvest, right? So market price is the main factor, followed by expected pack out percentage, which is another factor, the amount of culls expected, and then the size of the cherry that also impact the harvest cost. Based on that, we have these assumptions. We made assumptions about harvest labor cost, packing house charges, and then different baseline yields and prices for cherries. And here I stop and I give it to Suzette, so she will explain her findings. Oh, there you go.
Thank you, Karina. Good morning, everyone. Let me see. Okay. So in the next few slides, we are going to show the estimated harvest cost, packing charges, and returns given different scenarios of crop loss, pack out, and FOB prices. We start with Chelan and the base case scenario of no crop loss. There is quite a bit of information going in this graph, so I'll spend a few minutes to go over it with you. So hopefully it will be easier to understand the results in the next slides because the graphs will look the same. The horizontal axis gives us the different FOB prices. At P1, total returns equal the sum of harvest and packing costs, or the return over harvest and packing charges is zero. At this price, a grower will be indifferent between harvesting and not harvesting. And below this price, returns will be negative, so harvest will not be economically viable to do. We denote P1 as the break-even price. It is $1.39 per pound when pack out is 70%, and $1.20 per pound when the pack out is 80% or 90%. P2 is the base price as of 2022, and P3 is what we consider as high price, which is 20% higher than the base price. The vertical axis gives us the values of the bars and red dots in terms of dollars per acre. There must be a trick to this. Okay. The blue column refers to the harvest cost, orange to packing charges, and the gray lines to other cash costs. The red dot refers to the return over harvest and packing charges. We estimated the costs and returns given different FOB prices, as well as different pack outs of 70%, 80%, and 90%. The packing charges are the same because the gross yield is the same in a given crop loss scenario. The total cash costs, which are the sum of harvest cost, packing charges, and other cash costs, are slightly higher when pack out is 70% because of the inclusion of sorting in the field. When the red dots are above zero, that means the returns are positive. It is under these scenarios when it is viable to harvest. Also, when returns are positive, that implies that a grower has the financial capacity to cover their other costs of production. In this slide, we show the other crop loss scenarios for Chelan. The results emphasize the direct relationship between gross yield and costs, such that when gross yield decreases, costs decreases, and the returns decrease as well. Under the scenarios of 40% and 60% crop loss, the harvest and packing costs and other cash costs are lower than the baseline, and so are the returns. All cash costs are covered when price is equal to the base price or the high price, and negative returns are realized when the price is below break even. It is in that case where harvest is not viable to do. We conducted the same analysis for Bing cherries, and we have similar results, which I'll show as soon as I figure. Okay, there you go. Same relationship between gross yield and costs and returns as in Chelan. And in both crop loss scenarios, we found the same thing as the case in Chelan regarding costs and returns being lower than the baseline when crop loss increases. And again, harvest is not viable when the market price is below break even. At 40% crop loss, all cash costs are covered when the price is equal to the base price and high price, except when pack out is at 70%. And at 60% crop loss, in all pack out scenarios, we find that all cash costs are covered only when the price is high. In this case, at $4.33 per pound. We conducted the same for sweetheart cherries, same results as in Chelan and Bing. I'll just make a note here of one of the differences from the others. In all crop loss scenarios, we find that all cash costs are covered when price is high, except when back out is 70%. And same thing, when price is lower than a break even, it is not viable to harvest. Okay, so what are the key messages to take away from these results? So for the first question, how do harvest costs change when production level changes? The results highlight the direct relationship between yield and costs. So when gross yield decreases because of crop loss, for example, due to pest, disease, or extreme weather events, harvest labor cost decreases because, of course, there's less fruit available to pick. But with the reduced volume of fruit, returns decline as well. And based on input from a sweet cherry grower, we included in-field sorting when the portion of culls to total harvest volume is more than 20%. And sorting is done in this case because we want to separate out majority of the culls to improve the pack out at the warehouse. So the harvest costs are slightly higher when pack out is 70% because of that additional in-field sorting. Okay. And what are the factors that influence a grower's decision to harvest? The decision is based on a combination of factors, which are the market price, expected pack out, size of the fruit, and volume of production. But of these factors, the most important is market price. A grower will consider harvesting only if the price is high enough to cover their pickers' wages and packing house charges. We also find that in all crop loss scenarios, harvest is not viable when the price is below break even and when pack out is 70%. And we also would like to note that packing house charges and harvest costs are only portions of the total expenses that growers pay for. So in order to assess the economic viability of the enterprise in the short run, one must look at whether the returns received are enough to cover all cash costs. Oops. Okay, before we finish our presentation, and now it's ended. How do I go back? Okay, here we go. Sorry, I'm having technical problems. We'd like to thank the sweet cherry growers and packing house owners, operators, pesticide consultants, and WSU Extension educators who provided the data and insights that helped us develop the enterprise budgets and conduct the economic analysis of the different harvest scenarios. And we also, this work was made possible by funding from the USDA NIFA SRI project and from the USDA Risk Management Agency. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any comments or questions about our work and the enterprise budgets. Again, this is the website that where you can access the different crop enterprise budgets. And if you have a few minutes to spare, this is just 4 questions. It's a very short survey. Your responses will let us know how useful the enterprise budgets are. This will give us feedback on how we can make them more useful and user-friendly. And your responses will guide us on what enterprise budgets to do next. So if you have time, please scan this QR code and let us know what you think. Thank you so much, and good morning.